Thank you, unlockable characters. I appreciate you greatly on this one. All right. From the top. Hey folks, this is Tolly and welcome to some more game dev. Here again with skill items part 4. Last week we went and set up some skill items that were required in order to unlock certain nodes on our skill grid. So we can now have certain items be required in order for you to be able to purchase strength. But we only had one generic item that was required for all node types. We also did some item drops from enemies. In earlier today, we took a look at setting up multiple skill items. So now we can have a skill item per stat. We've set up strength, defense, and HP so far. And if we kill an enemy, I'm going to do a restart here, and we get a skill up, we will not be able to buy anything until we have actually gained one of the appropriate nodes or items to unlock that node. The terminology is somewhat hard to keep straight, but here we get a crystal shard, but that is the generic version. For the new setup, we have strength won't be purchasable even though we have a skill point, because we need a strength crystal specifically. And we've set up this chest over here to give us 2 of those, so we can come over, reflect at this pool, and we can now purchase this, which will consume 1 of our strength crystals. But we can't buy the increase of health because we don't have any HP crystals. So that's the broad idea. The next thing we're going to look at in this stream is setting it up so that the enemies drop a variety of different items. Right now, again, they're only dropping the initial kind of generic crystal we set up, mostly for testing. I'd like to have it so, at least to start, it can drop strength, defense, or HP at like maybe a 33% chance of each, or maybe 25% chance of each and a 25% chance of dropping nothing. We can play with those numbers, but that's the core idea. So right before we ended the stream earlier today, we took a look at some old code from the Era of Embers project, and we saw that I had this function for choosing an item based off of a number of tickets that it's been given. If we look at the design data for this, it becomes a little clearer what's happening. So if we say we had a monster that was like this flame rat, we could have it so that it has a healing item with 100 tickets associated with it, and we would roll based off of the total number of tickets. We'd add up all of the items, add up all their tickets, roll a number between 0 and the total, and then we try and check to see if that number that we rolled is less than the number of tickets for that drop chance. I did realize that this code is bugged and this won't work correctly. There's a little bit of extra logic, which I have figured out. So the thing we need to add to this is that if we roll, say like a 7 for the first item, or say this is the number of tickets each item has. So this is the number of tickets that this item has associated with it. The number of chances it has to win the lottery on the roll. And we roll 27. What we're currently doing in this logic here is we're saying, is the number of tickets less than this number? So is 27 less than 7? And it's not, so we move on. And we say, is 40 less than 27? No, sorry, is 27 less than 40? Is that what we're doing? Yeah, the roll is less than the number of tickets. And in this case, we would say yes. But the problem is if we had, say, like 5, 5, 5, and 5, and we rolled a number like, let's say 14, this is going to pick the first, this will pick none of these, because it'll check each of them and see that 14 is not less than 5, and it'll do that 4 times. So that's the flaw in this code. But thinking it out, the thing I realized we need to do, and again, it's easier to see in this bottom example, but when we do a check for each of these, we should check, is 14 less than 5? And if no, we should subtract the number of tickets that item had from the roll. So the roll should then be, is 9 less than 5? And that's no. And then we do 4 less than 5, and that would be yes. So we'd pick the third item in this roll chance. So that's the change we need here. This is missing that subtraction logic. If we go back to the more complicated version here, it would still be the same. I don't think it would change the results in this particular example, but it would be, is 27 less than 7? We'd say no, and then we do 20 less than 40, and it would be yes. So it would be the same same result. But if we flip these and make the roll 27, then it would be, is 27 less than 40? And we get it, so that's wrong. Oh, I guess in order to show this, I need to go bigger than 40. So if we do like 46, then is 46 less than 40? We'd say no. But then when we subtract 40 from it, we'd be left with 6. Okay, so we would then get the correct item. So I think all we have to do here is we just need to do, if we didn't exit out here on this drop chance, we need to do roll minus equal drop chance dot tickets. And I think that fixes this logic. Hopefully that made sense. Regardless, we're moving on. So this is all inside of old code though. We need to steal this logic and we need to put this in our new loot script that we made last time. Or I don't know, at some point we made this in the last few streams. Loot.cs. Thank you. So we're going to add a list of drop chances. And I think we can just steal this function wholesale, choose an item. And that can be a private function inside of loot. And that can take in this list of items, which at that point, why don't we just do this? Easy. Cool. So we can choose an item which will return to us a string. And that string would go inside of onEnter data. We should clean this up a little bit too. Item ID. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I think we can remove all of this old code because I like the spawn on enter a little bit more than spawning a interactable that you then have to interact with. It just solves a bunch of bugs we were having. So I'm going to leave it for now because I might want to check in this into like, I might want to save this before I remove it. What else are we using inside of this onEnter data? We're using the prop entity ID. In here, we shouldn't be using the required flags, I don't think. We shouldn't be using set flag. We are using these, and we aren't modifying the type. So I think this could be simplified down a great deal. We just copy and pasted the interact logic as a starting point. Okay, I'm gonna worry about refactoring that before checking in later. For this stream, we're gonna leave it in its slightly overcomplicated state. Let's go to mini slime. And if we go to the loot script, so we don't really care what's going to be in this item ID because it's ideally going to get replaced by this one. I'm not seeing that, so we have errors, I would assume. No. Oh, because drop chance isn't serializable. That might break things. Let's see. Should be fine. It's just adding extra like metadata to it, so it'll show up here. Okay, so if we have a drop chance, we can have an item. Those items would be, where's my list? Items. Yeah, this one. So those items would be strength node, defense node, and HP node. So we could do strength node 25. We could do defense node. And we could do HP node. And then I guess I would like to add some logic for an empty. So if it finds that the winner if on enter data dot item ID string dot is null or empty, return. We don't want to spawn anything. We're just going to leave. If you gave me an empty string for the item that we're supposed to spawn, we're just not going to do anything. Seems good enough. Unlockable characters with the hydration. Appreciated. Okay, that should just work now. If I've set this up correctly, we should get a drop on one of the 3 stat nodes 25% of the time. Well, 75% of the time we will get 1 crystal, and 25% of the time we will get nothing. So nothing on this one. Little worrisome, but okay. Found a defense crystal. Found another defense crystal. Odds are random. Sample size is small. Strength crystal. Okay. This is feeling okay so far. I would like to see an HP crystal. Nothing. Defense. Strength. Not seeing an HP, but it could just be that we're not rolling it. Strength. I guess making a console command of some kind to be able to validate this would be helpful. Did get an error on knockout. Because it tried to drop loot for the player. Or more accurately, it tried to get the loot script on the player, but the player doesn't have a loot script. So we're going to add a inline null check on that, and that should resolve itself. And then I'm going to just keep hitting this slime until eventually it drops an HP, or I decide that there's probably a bug. Oh, null reference. Interesting. Entity manager. How did we get that? It's trying to show the item you found, but we're getting a null reference. It can't be on this, so it has to be on the add item ability effect. Could be on the item catalog, I guess, but that seems weird. It did try and load an HP item. Okay, maybe we got the name wrong? Oh, capital. Yeah, I typed it in wrong. Well, this is the issue with data-driven systems. Well, data-driven in which you can type in the string names opposed to it automatically looking up from some sort of like database and validating the entry at data entry level, or validating the data is correct at the time of data entry opposed to runtime. I spawned an enemy when the enemy was already alive. All right. Let's try this again. So we come over here. Strength crystal. Defense crystal. Looking for that HP. 25% chance. Nothing. More nothing. There it is. Okay, cool. So we have validated the system can drop all 4 items. Whether or not it's exactly like perfect with the percentages and the ticket system, I'm not sure. Oh, one thing I was thinking about when I built this algorithm over dinner was I realized this should also be a less than or equal. Pretty minor on how big of an impact that'll make. But I think that is slightly more accurate. Because then if you roll 25, that would count for the first one. Oh, maybe not actually. If I roll 25 exactly, then the first one would have been from 0 to 24. No, I think we do expect it to roll over because we start counting at 0. Which is why we do less than, not equal. Less than or equal. Okay, we're gonna leave it. Either way, if the odds are slightly off, I'm not super concerned, at least not at this stage. I think the way the system is built, it would just weight one of the items slightly more often than the others. Cool. So we now have an enemy that can drop a variety of items based off of some amount of like lottery ticket systems, which if you manage to make all the ticket numbers add up to 100, essentially it becomes a % chance. Like you could think about the fact that each one is given 25 tickets, which means, and we have 4 items, so they add up to 100. So therefore, when we roll, we're rolling a number between 0 and 100. So the % chance becomes even, or close to. So that makes it a little nicer, but the system doesn't require it to be an addition to 100. It's just potentially nice to do as you're designing. Cool. So we have 1 strength for crystal, and we've gained 5 skill points. So we can unlock this one, but we cannot unlock this one or this one because we do not have any more strength or defense. So we'd have to go back and do more combat. Hoping to be able to get another crystal. We got another strength one. We can come back in, buy this one, but we don't have any speed ones. In fact, we haven't hooked up speed at all, so that'll be impossible to get. So we're looking for defense as the only other route we can go then. There it is. So now we can go up, buy this defense, and then we had another strength crystal drop, so we can buy that one. Okay. That doesn't feel half bad. Yeah, and now we're gated because we can't find speed crystals from this enemy. Neat. Other things I would like to fix. This grid is bad. It is hard to tell while streaming, but the way that you navigate this grid is weird. I push down and I go to this one, and I push right, I go to that one. That kind of makes sense, but like, it's not working fully correct. Let's unlock combat test. Let's unlock shoot as well. Yeah, I can't get over to the other node currently. So there is some bugs with this screen in particular that I think are the next thing that we should tackle, because I'd like to get it to the point now where we can upgrade. I'm going to hit control to debug, purchase these. I'd like to get to the point where I can buy this unlock /V2. And what I'd like to have happen when we do this is that, well, a couple of things. I'd like to make it so this node is only unlockable and purchasable once you've unlocked every other node in the grid. So it is like a mastery node. Once you have unlocked everything, this node can be activated. And once you activate this node, I want it to automatically go back to this screen, not show the original skill, but have that skill like animate into a new form. So maybe it shows it, but then like it does an animation where it disappears and a new one appears in its place. And then when you click on that new skill, it will go to its new skill grid, and this skill grid will no longer be accessible, essentially. So you will evolve the skill trees and get further by maxing them out. So that's kind of where we're heading. That's like the other kind of note I wrote down in our little note tracker is skill upgrading, or skill evolving, or whatever I decide to end up naming it in the end. But regardless, that system is kind of the next piece of the puzzle. Now that we have these crystals, I'd like to make it so that you can max out a skill grid and upgrade it to its next form. In order to do that, I want to fix this screen so that I can properly navigate between the nodes, because if we're going to be swapping this node out for a different one, I need the navigation to already be working in the first place before we start adding that level of complexity on top. So, that all being said, how do we do that? Let's go to skills. I built that menu relatively quickly, thus why it's kind of broken. remove all nodes, load ability skill menu. Okay, so this is the menu that we currently have. And this has no information inside of it because we're not using it for actual like stat nodes or anything. We're just using the directionals to determine which node we're going to. So this is index 0. So if I push to down, we're going to go to index 1. And if I push left, I'm going to go to index 1. This is index 1. If I go... Oh, I think I see what the problem is. Okay, let's try something. If we disable bash so that we no longer have this ability, how does the skill screen react? I think the problem we're having with the navigation is that sometimes not all nodes are visible. Because I think defend is appearing in the middle right now, and it's also defend is repeating the bow. No, this works fine. Okay. What if we have defend but we don't have slash? This is left, right. I can't go left from here. I can go up. That's weird. Okay, so I think if I can go up from this node, up should be index 0. Which, even though this is framed as index 1, I think because we didn't spawn this one, this becomes the 0th index. Yeah, the indices move around, so they're not. If I load this map exactly how it's supposed to be loaded with all of these nodes, then it works. But if we look at, can I find it by doing this? I can. So we have bash, shoot, and defend. Oh, that's for under the player. Do we have... node menu? No? Where are these? Please select the node button. It has to go through every single option trying to find the thing I'm clicking on. It's just going to go down through every layer. There, perfect. Thank you. These are called skill menu nodes, so if we need to search for them, that's what they're called. Their data holder is messed up or empty, so that's not going to tell me much. Yeah, so right now it's set up in this current logic that up is selecting itself and right is selecting this one. Okay, so this is this one. That's the bottom left. This is center. That's bottom right. Okay. So if it pushes... How did I get there? Where was that? Here. So if I push up, it's pointing at itself because it is index 0 in this list. Yeah. Yeah, I see the problem. The issue is that I build the skill screen and I build these menus assuming that all nodes are always visible. But because we don't show all of the nodes for every ability, wrong skill menu? Oh, it didn't save. Yeah, so in this situation, because this one isn't loaded, 1 becomes 0, and then all of these indices break. Because it's missing a child for the indices to match up. Is there a way to make this more robust? When this does the indice system, when this tries to do, say, right index, where, like, we're setting this node transform. Oh, and then it comes into here. Where does this get used? This never gets used. Okay, here's where we actually do the setting of which button navigates to which other button. So this is doing down index. So when we get valid button, we do a try get node at index. And that uses get button, which, yeah, it does a button list check. This should, in fact, be trying to get the button based off its index. Oh, but this doesn't know about my node system. Yeah, this just knows about these buttons as a bunch of lists. We're pretty deep in the generics at this point. Does a graph node have it? An I node has up, down, left, right, but it does not have index. Okay. I think we can adapt this. Yeah, we have two different systems for infinite retries versus the JRPG, which is Era of Embers. Both of which already define an index. And these are the only two things that are using this interface. Okay, so in theory, we should be able to do a modification to this. To add index as a parameter that is accessible inside of the menu. We have to do this as a get set menu, and we're going to do this in both the old project and the new project. Okay. I don't think that should change anything about how this is used. It shouldn't. Okay. So then if we go back inside of the menu where we do get button, this has them as a list of buttons, but we should be able to do button.getComponent this should be able to get us the graph node. Try get graph node. Oh, which is what this is already doing. So we're inside of here. The problem is at the very first step, we try and get a button at that index. But instead, we need to loop through all the buttons and check their indexes versus... Oh, okay. Okay. This is fine. This is solvable. Chat, we can do this. So instead of doing a simple get button call here, which is getting it by index, we're instead going to need to build a list of every graph node. Okay. This is a pretty fundamental change. Hopefully, because this is some pretty low level code in our menu system. Where do we create this list? Here, we should be able to do button dot. What was the setup? This setup. Okay. Where else do we use this? We use it for navigation. And we use it for refreshing. That's fine. Setting callbacks is fine. Okay. This becomes a dictionary. That's how this works. This becomes a dictionary, and the key will be its index. And I think this just simplifies the code and kind of makes it a little bit better. We will do this as a local variable, mostly so that we can get the index. Oh, why does it not have it? Oh, we need to do .get node from here. Get node. And then get the index. Okay. Okay. Then when we try to do try get node, all of this gets way simpler. We can just do try get on the list we've already created. And then get out a graph node. And then I think the rest of this just goes away. So instead of doing this get call every single time we try and get a node, we're just going to set this up in a local list whenever we add a button. And we are going to clear this whenever we clear the list. This is not modifying it. This is just getting the list, getting the list, getting the list. Yeah, just getting, not modifying the list, using it but not modifying it. Cool. So because that list is not modified anywhere else, these should in theory be in sync, because whenever we add to it, we're adding to this one, and whenever we clear, we're clearing this one. This is protected, so it shouldn't be used outside in any way. People can manipulate the internal buttons inside the lists, but we're fine with that. As long as the list itself is untouched, that should be okay. So now when we try and get the index or try and get a node by a specific index, we're not doing that by order of node in the list. We're doing that by the true index that we gave it at data time, like at the moment that we created it. So even if there isn't a node 0 just won't exist. So in that situation, when node 0 doesn't exist, it should fail this try get node. So it'll set it to not available. Or no, this is if we find it. And then here, this is for hooking up the navigation for that button. So if we don't find that button, we won't hook up its navigation. But what happens where there's got to be one more spot I'm missing? Let's try get. There's one more reference. Here, get valid button. Yeah, so if it can't find the node, so if node 0 isn't loaded, but one of the other ones is trying to get that as a navigation button, it won't find that index and it'll just set it to null, so you won't be able to navigate in that direction. Okay. In theory, this should fix our bugs. Again, I know it's hard on stream to see because you're not controlling it, but is this going to break our data? That's the one thing I'm concerned about. When we come into here and we do remove all nodes, can we still load this template? We can. Did it keep the indices? This is indice 0. This is indice 1, indice 2, indice 3. Okay, so it kept those values. If we remove all this and then load slash, did these get kept correctly? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, this all looks correct. Okay, so now we're going to go into game. The data looks fine. It seems to be, even though we've changed the variable, the name hasn't changed. We've just changed it from a regular variable to a getter setter. So if we come into here, ooh, we do hit. This is expected, I think. No, it's not. We're using the list still as a count, and there is no node 0 in this situation. So we need to not be looping through the button list here. I think we need to be looping through the node graph. Oh, I guess this gets way simpler, because what is this trying to do? It's just trying to get nodes at that position. So the node graph will just be what we're trying to find. We don't have to go get it or try get it. If it's in this list, it already exists. So node button is what we're trying to get out. So we should just be able to do this. And now there's no need for an if check, because if it's in the list, it exists. This could also be a for each as well now, but that's fine. Okay, so that's another kind of slight optimization. I like this. I like this changeover. It feels like the existing system was built kind of incorrectly, and this is not just a hack fix. This is like refining and fixing up kind of part of that base and like graph logic. Fix may have been a strong word. Okay, this does need to be a for each then. So instead of doing this, we just need to loop through. These are our node graphs. I graph node in the node list. Instead of I here. Oh, this one's tricky actually. Because we want to hook up the button, but we want to get button by... Oh, here's a... Okay, this is a problem. The graph node doesn't have a reference to the button. It is not. They are separate. They should have been added in order. So in theory... Yeah, we can't actually access a dictionary in this way. So we can't do it by eye because that's not a... We need to loop through this dictionary, but we need to keep track of eye. Okay, this part feels less clean. There's like the buttons and the graph node list are not connected in a way that makes this clean. So, and we can't do dot value because we can't index over the values in this way. Doing a for each is simpler. Oh, this is gross. But we could do graph. So this works, we just don't know what I is. So the kind of awful thing we can do is int index equals 0. Yeah, we can do that to iterate over each graph node. And then by keeping track of it, we can get the button. So this makes the assumption that button list and graph node list are identical in their placements, which again, because this is all protected, ideally that should remain true. But in general, this is bad code practice. You should not rely on two lists being identical in their like that each indice matches up. It's kind of just bad practice. but it does work. All right, let's see if it actually does work. I don't like it. My inner coder, like, angel is like, no. And then my inner coder devil is like, yes, but what if? What if yes? So this is not working regardless. I can't get back over here. So let's take a look at what happened with the nodes. So we have 3 of them here. None of this data is filled in because that's only used at like build time. So on its right, it thinks it should be going to this node, which I'm going to check. That is that one. Okay. I don't disagree with that fundamentally. If we click to the right, yes, it should go to that one. Now, if I hit up, it probably should go to this one, but I suppose it is currently set up so that slash is the one it wants to go to. Okay. What about this one? What does this want to go to? This wants to go down to itself, left to itself, and right to this one. I'm going to check to make sure the data is actually set up correctly on the middle one, because that one was done somewhat haphazardly. So if we come back into here, remove all nodes, load this, yeah, none of these are index 3, so it shouldn't be pointing to itself for any of these. This one should go up to 0 and left. And this one should go up to 0 and right to 2. So in theory, if we have this set up correctly, none of these should actually go to 3. 3 should be impossible to reach in the current setup. In fact, even if we have them all turned on, none of these should be navigating to Indice 3. Yeah, none of these have Indice 3 set up as a destination. So the fact that we go here at all is an indication of a bug. Like, the data should be set up so that you can navigate there, but for the purposes of us testing this menu system, if we have it set up correctly, we should never be able to reach this node. But if we hit left right now, we're going to this one, which we shouldn't. We should go to the hammer. Okay, we're going to take another quick look to see what's actually hooked up here, and then we're going to have to do a little bit of debugging. So this should go to the right, which is this one. That's what we expect. But this one should go to the left, which should be this one, but in fact it's up here. And then this one is going to these 3 buttons, which I'm going to double check. What should it be going to? If we get to the middle one. It should be going up to 0, left and down should go to this one, to the bash, and then right should go to the one on the right. Okay, so then if we come back in and we look at this middle node, which also somewhat telling that this is loaded second. I think that's part of the problem we're running into. This is pointing to itself, and to the right. But this should be pointing to index 1. Okay, so something, I can see the problem. It is still somehow tracking based off of this indice. Okay, we're going to put in a couple of breakpoints. We're going to reload, and we're going to see what happens. I think we'll hit those breakpoints immediately. Oh, unlockable characters with the hydrate. Appreciate. Remember to unmute. All right. So yeah, as soon as we open the menu, it loads, and this graph list is actually empty to start. Okay, we add a button. This button should be index 1. Which is bash. Okay. So we have the first in the list is a node button, and it is bash. I think that is fine. Here, we're getting index 3. So now we've got 1 and 3. And then now, lastly, we'll get index 2. Okay, so we have node lists 1, 3, and 2. So if we come back down to populate navigation, which I guess is called after we've done this, somehow, not going to worry about it. Then we're going to loop through these values, and we're going to get a node, and that node will be indice 1, and it's going to get button 0, which again should line up with the first button in the list. So they should be correct. So now this node button should be navigating to up to 0 index, left to 99, and right to index 2. So if we hit, let's just get into here, I think. Try get node. Come into here. Index 99. We don't find that, so we get null. Which I think is correct. Then here we're getting index 0, which also shouldn't exist, so we get null. Then we're checking index 99, which is invalid, so we don't get anything there. And then we check index 2, which we should find index 2 to be that node. And then we're going to get node based off index. Oh, this is another problem. This is where we're getting the other issue. Node index can't be what we use to get the button. Yeah, this is where the problem is. In order to get the button, we have to get its order in the list. Yeah, they're not related. The node index does not relate to the get button call, because the get button call gets it based off of just order of add. but the interface for graph node doesn't have a button call, and it shouldn't. But we need some sort of data structure that connects them. Where is get button called? In a bunch of different spots. This just wants a list of buttons back. Internally, it doesn't need to be a list of buttons, though. What's our fundamental problem? It's that we have two separate lists that we're trying to keep in sync. How do you solve that problem? You make a new data structure in which the data structure contains both items. I'm going to just work through the problem. And the problem is that we have... Gotta put in class. All right, there we go. So we need an object that has a button in it and has a I graph node in it. Okay. And then I think we want a protected dictionary of menu graph buttons. And then when we add a button to this list, we're not going to worry about this other stuff. We're going to leave it for now, but we're going to just eventually replace it with this concept. We're going to do a new this will still be index, but then we're doing a new menu graph button with an inline constructor for button. Oh, we need these to be public, otherwise somewhat useful or useless. So we're going to do button is equal to button, and graph node is equal to graph node. Cool. Now, when we want to get the list of buttons, we're going to replace everywhere we do button list with get buttons. This becomes clear. I think eventually we're going to get rid of all of this. I don't know what... Okay, stop. So if we see button list, it should be replaced with the function instead. Anywhere and everywhere. Smart enough to suggest it in some spots, but not all. This seems weird. We'll come back to that. Okay. I think that has eliminated this. Okay. And then anywhere we were doing the graph node list, I think this instead becomes... this, and then we have to instead reference the graph node internally. Okay, and so then we basically need to go through and do that anywhere and everywhere that shows up. Sorry, wrong one. This one. This doesn't work anymore. All right, just start removing. We're gonna go through it step by step. So we're gonna make a new list of buttons here. Okay. Values. Okay. Okay. So we're getting there. So then we move our way down to here. This becomes... This becomes a nightmare. What do you mean, no suggestions? What is Visual Studio upset about? Oh, I see. This needs to be here. This is part of core. Why are you complaining that you can't find index? It is public, right? Yeah, it's a public integer. Right, because we need to do get node first. I will eventually remember this. Okay, cool. So that's solved. What's the next problem? No more problems. Good. Now the next issue becomes the get button call. Here. Instead of doing node index, get buttons. I think we need some sort of try get button. If try get button based off of the node index of the that becomes our selectable. Okay. So I think this solves it. Sorry, chat, if I broke down and I was not actually communicating. But essentially what we've done now is we've tied the button to a node index by checking to see if that node index is found within one of the graph nodes. And if so, return that graph node's associated button. Okay. So then I hate this. This needs to change. The fact that I'm creating a list. Yeah, okay, so this is an easy change. I think we can get away with doing something like this to get rid of the double function calls. That I'm okay with. Anywhere else we were doing that here, this becomes buttons. And here we access it that way. Same thing down here. We also get the list of buttons and then check the count and then get the indice. There might be a cleaner way to do some of this stuff where internally we don't have to create a separate list. Like, does it have to be a list of buttons in this scenario? Could we not loop through the dictionary? Just going to experiment for a second here. Menu graph button. small thing, but this should be buttons if it's a list. Okay, so then here, we're going to grab this. When we call refresh components, we could just do this, and then we don't have to build a new list. That seems easy. Where would we be doing get button by index now? It would be here, which we no longer need to do. We should have access to the button like that. Okay. So this was an internal get button call, which we no longer need. Okay. That seems like it's been cleaned up. We're just going to do a quick check for get button. This I want to fix. So we will first make a list. And then if the count is equal to 0, we complain. Otherwise, we get first. Again, could that not be done? That should work fine. Value.button.gameObject. Now we don't need to get the list. Okay, that's cleaned up. So then is this is gone. I think, is there a reason we need I? Mostly just to complain at that indice. Realistically, this could be handled internally with this function as well. So we could loop through all of these and then just do menu graph dot button is equal to button. And then we shouldn't need this. The only problem is we lose indice, but we should be able to do dot graph node dot index, which is technically a little bit more helpful because what the child index is going to change, but the graph node index will be consistent in this particular case. Get node dot index. Okay. Where else are we using get button? Try get button, that's fine. We don't need this anymore, that seems okay. Here for populating navigation. I think this gets simplified. What would be a situation in which it couldn't find a node? If we're looping through the buttons, this is where my mental map of what's happening is starting to break down. I think it's okay to replace this with just a loop that just sets all nodes to availability false. think that's right. I think this becomes... that? And if that's the case, we don't need 2 for loops doing the same thing. We can instead just make sure we do that when we loop through here. Here we can do node dot. And we don't need this indice variable anymore. This comment is still valid. Anywhere else where we're doing get button? We have some try get buttons. Otherwise, no. Do we still need the try get node call? Where is this being used? Yes, this is being used inside of get valid nav button, which is still valid because we would want to get the node based off of an index. So we still need this function and still works fine-ish. It's a little slow, but it's fine. Okay. That's a pretty major refactor. Again, I think cleaner, hard to follow even myself. But essentially we've taken a system that was kind of dependent on 2 lists. Interesting. This is a node graph menu versus a menu graph. This is what we just modified. Okay. I think this is fine. This is just a separate one that's overriding get first. And instead of using whatever's first in the list, it's actually checking that button's node data to see whether or not it is the starting node and setting that to be the first in the list. Okay. I think we can just use get buttons to make a list of buttons in this situation. That's what I'm looking for. And then this becomes this list. Good. That could also be probably simplified to just use the base, like, list we built for combining both the buttons and the menu graph nodes, but hopefully this should function. That looks correct. We did it. That's the behavior we're looking for. Now, is that good? I don't know, but it's fixed. Let's see if we can improve it. So in here, if we come to the node loader and load this template, node 3 probably should be accessible by pushing up. Trixie with the hydrate, appreciate. Okay, here's the short version. Everything we did, important. Let's not forget about that. Because fundamentally, the system was not navigating between the buttons the way that we should have been. So I think that refactor was important because it was fundamentally bugged. Want to start there. The problem now is that if we ever have something disabled, we still run into a fundamental issue where that node would be what we would get when we go north. And we now have it set up so that if that node doesn't exist, it will set that button to null, so you won't be able to navigate to it. Rather than arbitrarily picking one of the other ones to be that indice based off of child count. Like that, the system is better. But we still have a problem that if the north node doesn't exist, and the only way to get to this middle node is, say, hitting down here, then it breaks. Now, we could try and solve this by saying, hey, these bottom two nodes, they point to the center node. So the center node could be, when we hit up, we want to go to index 3 for both of these. We could do that. And then from index 3, we could go up towards index 0. The problem is what happens if index 3 is not enabled. Now, when we hit up from index 1 and tries to go to 3, 3 isn't here, so we don't go to this one. And that's the crux of the problem. I think inherently, it feels like if we disable some of these nodes, we should have like alternate nodes that we should go to. So if it can't find index 3, it should go to this one instead. Now, Unity at base has a system to allow that. Right now we're using navigation explicit, which says when we push up, we want to control exactly what button we go to. Because I found that in general, its automated system for automatically choosing is not reliable. So I want to just say that aloud. I am aware that there is an automatic navigation that could solve this fundamentally. But I want to be in control of where these buttons go. And so the problem, okay, the triumphant has passed. The problem is that I need there to be alternates, which this system doesn't allow for. If index 3 is not turned on this graph, I don't have a way of saying fall back to index 2 as your backup. And that gets more complicated because as we go further, it's like, well, what if this one isn't on, but we have one over here? Like the whole system fundamentally kind of falls apart if we have toggling nodes, which is not how it was originally built. When we originally built it for like the skill grid, we were expecting to have a set like layout, and that was the layout you go with. But when we come into this kind of like graph for selecting, because that's what we're looking at here. We're looking at a graph for loading up the like actual skills. So this would be slash, this would be bash. These are like our main skills, but we're not guaranteed to have all the skills unlocked at the start. I guess the question then becomes, are we guaranteed to have nodes unlocked in a specific order? Or abilities, I should say. Will we always get slash before bash? I think I can say yes to that statement, because I'm building the game linearly in a kind of predictable manner. So I guess I could... Yeah, because originally we were thinking about letting you choose which ability you want to start with, but that's not true anymore. So can I design this graph in a way that I know you'll unlock them in a specific order and it'll function as you unlock them? Yes. Yes, we can do that. Okay, so... How does it know what order to show the skills in? So like this is the graph, but how does it know that slash is the first one? Is that some sort of JSON data that I wrote at some point when I threw this together? Looking for something for menu. Did I just embed it directly inside of the ability node? Okay, let's go to the source before we go digging around through our design data. We have a skill menu list, and this skill menu list is a menu graph, which has an ability spec menu. Okay, that all seems fine. What does this do? This loops through all the unlocked abilities and tries to make a node for each of them. Oh. Interesting. The ability spec has a ability node object inside of it. So if we go look at the JSON data for an ability spec, I think that's this one, ability node design data. This has all of the node data. Okay, this only has the node data. Okay, so where is it getting... Where does this get populated from? Oh, it's ability design data. Oh, okay. Oh. Yeah, so defend is just index 3. This is index 2. This is index 1. This is index 0 for slash. Is that just inside of the TSV data for our abilities? Yes, it is. Okay. Let me bring that up real quick. Abilities. Yeah, so each ability is just assigned an index, and that decides where it shows up in that list. Okay. Cool. So that all makes sense. So then I could make it so node 0 is slash, and I always know that you're going to unlock slash first. And I could have slash navigate to several different nodes, but I always know that slash is the first one that we're going to unlock. And then if I know that bash is node index 1, I should be able to have those two navigate back and forth between each other. So the real problem is the fact that we have this one being unlocked in the middle later. That's the problem we're running into right now. If this was instead unlocked even somewhere down here or off to one side. Then when we push left from here to try and go here, nothing would happen until we unlock it. And if we push down, it would go. Yeah, so the problem is that we're trying to insert a node that doesn't exist in the middle. So defend can't be here. Interesting. Okay, so code-wise, there is a fundamental issue in which we can't handle every single possible configuration. Because if we ever toggle a node off, we would need backups, or to use Unity's automatic button navigation system. But even though that's a problem, we could design the grid to unlock in a fashion that allows it to work. We can design away the problem instead of code away the problem. Yeah. This is the kind of weirdness that I'm talking about. Like, I guess it's fair, Unity doesn't know what to do with this, but if I hit up, it goes up. If I hit down, it goes down to the left. If I hit right, it goes up to this one. If I go right, it goes over to this one. And like, that's not exactly how I would intuitively think that it would lay it out. I just wanted to double check and see if automatic would just solve these problems. But once again, it is just not as clean as I would like. So yeah, I think the solution here is that we design away the problem opposed to build a crazy redundant system to handle all the possible permutations as you unlock the nodes. We could go to that as a backup if we can't find a way to design the problem away. Yeah, this is where we had originally set up some unlock orders, and defend is currently in the middle where I thought magic 1 would be. And as much as I like this layout, I think it just fundamentally breaks if you don't start from the middle and work your way out. If you ever have something unlocking in the middle, it kind of breaks stuff. Yeah. The other option, if we also have problems making this work, we could also just have it so that the nodes appear, but appear locked. So instead of just having the nodes not shown on the grid for the skills you don't know yet, we could just show them as like locked symbols. But I know Drixie was talking about wanting to redo some of this UI as well, do another pass on it. So maybe all of this is for naught if we end up changing the UI anyways. I'm spiraling. Okay, let's pull up. So let's say that this is fine. Let's say that we will make some changes so that the nodes unlock in such a way that we don't run into a problem here. Let's see if we can do that simply with a data change. If we go into the ability design data in here, instead of slash being node 0, which is at the top. Let's make this node 3, and let's make defend node 0. And I think that, at the very least, should fix our problems, because we should always unlock slash first, and slash will be in the middle. Let's see how this functions. Oh, we need to actually fix the skill menu, because I don't think it was even set up correctly to begin with. So in here, this node 0 should go down to node 3. And then for now, I don't think it does anything else. Down takes you to node 3, otherwise it goes nowhere. This one should be up, should take you to node 3. Right should take you to node 2. Everything else should do nothing for the time being. This one should go up to node 3, left to node 1, and otherwise nothing. And then node 3 should go up to 0, left to 1, down to nothing, because I think that's more intuitive than it going to either one of those. And then right is 2. Yes, that is correct. That seems good. Okay, so then we're going to template name ability skill menu. We're going to save template. That's fine. That's unrelated. And now this layout should work, because we know we're always going to unlock slash first. And it is in the center of the grid. Left. Yeah, so I guess this still feels weird, because I'm hitting down, which is what I just set up to do nothing, and it's not going down to the bash ability. And now it feels like it should, but it feels weirder when we have one here, and then it doesn't go that way. This is fine, obviously. Left, and then right also doesn't take me here. I have to hit up. Yeah, so with nodes missing, it still just feels fundamentally flawed. I don't want to have to write a backup system that says, like, go to this node unless you can't find it, then go to this node. Like, it's just going to be so much extra data. The other option is to just scrap the idea of this being a menu, and instead just have a list of the skills that you unlock. Because we know that they're going to unlock in an unknown order. I like the design of this being a grid. What's currently saying to not show it? Like, what's making it so it doesn't appear at all? This. It only shows things that are unlocked. And I guess that makes sense. It doesn't have a concept. The ability specs doesn't have a concept of things to come. Like, we don't keep track of, like, the stuff that will eventually be unlocked. We only track things that you've actually gained. Yeah, okay. Okay. This is far down the rabbit hole. I feel like we've lost the thread a little bit. We're almost at time too. Okay. This was good. I know it doesn't seem good because I've just been rambling for an hour without actually making any real progress, but getting my head wrapped around this system is something I had to do in order to move forward. So, a couple of options. We either build a very elaborate system that has backups for every single one of these. So like, oh, if this one isn't spawned, use this configuration. Could we use the ability templates as the backups? Like right now, how does it load? Like what does it load? This is loading a button. But somewhere it must be loading the template. I think I saw that a moment ago. What was the name of this? Ability skill menu? I feel like that's hard coded somewhere. Here. Create ability select node. Get the template. Get the node transform for that skill index from that transform or from that ability node designs. And this has the indices inside of it? It does. Okay. So instead of making a bunch of different variations of like this script having to have like write 1, write 2, write 3, like backups in that regard, what we could do is we could have a different menu. What's the correct terminology here? A different template for the number of skills you have. So if you have 3 skills, load a template that has 3 skills. If you have 2 skills, load a template that has 2 skills. And then, yeah, we have backup data, but we're not building backup data into this class and making everything more muddy. We're not having to build backups into the code. We're having data backups, which I'm much more okay with. And then we would simply just need some sort of system that says, based off the number of nodes you've unlocked, that determines which template to use when we load into this screen. Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. Okay. I'm summarizing this now for future me, because I think we're gonna call it here relatively quick. But next week when we come back, I don't think I'll call it part 5, but I think we'll look at doing skill evolving or skill upgrading, where we're gonna have skills, level up and replace the old versions with new versions on this grid. And I think that'll be the primary focus of next week. And in order to do that, the first thing we'll need to do is set up this idea. And we can do it as a rough version for now, but we can check the... This ability spec just knows it does have the unit state. Perfect. Create node. And it needs the unit state to be passed in because eventually these things will call back to the unit state. Yeah, updating it with new specs or changing stats. Okay. But the fact that the unit state is being passed in here means that we can very easily check a value. Is this that straightforward? Not quite. So this is close to working. The primary problem is that this call to construct the ability spec only happens once the first time that ability is added, when you unlock it or through loading a save file. And then we never call it again. But the positional data would need to be updated. So it's not going to be quite this simple. But I'm onto something here. So I think what we want to do is we would want to update the ability selected node. Basically, this create ability select node. This needs to be like update ability select node, and this needs to be updated anytime we add a new ability spec. Yes. Anytime we add a new ability spec, we would want to update all of the ability specs based off the new count that we have. And then based off that count, we would have a list of templates that we would use. A template for 2 skills, a template for 3, a template for 4. And this means that we don't even have to have it so that they're just turning on and off. The actual like look of the grid or the layout of the grid can change as you unlock more. So it could start as a triangle and then become like a square and then a pentagon and then an octagon, or like, you know, I'm skipping a few there obviously, but like it could grow out to be like a circle, or maybe it becomes like a plus sign, or maybe it becomes like an X. Like we can change the shape. There's some navigation concerns there, like depending on the shapes we choose, but we can have the nodes move around based off the number of them you have unlocked. I think it's also worth calling out right now, my current plan is that you'll eventually unlock 8 different nodes. So there is a set size to this graph as well. We'll eventually get to 8, and then you won't gain any more, but you will gain, you will upgrade them and they'll become stronger. And so the node itself will change, but the positions don't have to at that point. But once you've unlocked your 4 physical abilities and your 4 magic abilities, that will be everything. So we just need a version of this for 1 skill up to 8. So we only need 8 different templates. That's not crazy. Okay, I like this solution. So just to summarize for future me, the plan is that we're going to have 8 different templates, and we're going to set up each template so that that template handles navigating through its nodes correctly. So if we hit down, it'll go to this one, or left, it'll go to this one, and like it'll handle however it needs to handle it, it'll handle it perfectly because it will be designed for that number of nodes. And then as we unlock more skills, we will use larger and larger templates with more node buttons on them. This does require that we build the I build the nodes in a specific order still, or that the abilities unlock in a specific order. Because if the template has slash, defend, and bash on it, but the player somehow finds a way to unlock the bow early, I don't know whether or not the bow would have the correct indice in a 3 template. Yeah, there's a problem there, but as long as the abilities unlock in a specific order, I think this plan will work. Cool. I'm excited for next week to figure out that actually none of this makes sense and it's all crazy, but for right now, I think that this seems like a pretty logical plan. We'll just have a couple of different templates. It's not complicated to hold this data, and as you unlock more skills, we will just update the template you're using, thus updating the navigation information. Perfect. All right, well, I'm pretty happy with where we're at here. This has been slow, but I feel like it has been solid progress. We've gotten to the point now where we do have a system to create new items, and those items can be tied to unlocking specific skill nodes. So we can defeat this slime, get a defense crystal, we can come over here, pick up 2 strength crystals from this chest, we can go into slash, and then we can spend a strength crystal. Well, we broke something. This one's set up correctly. That has an is unlocked node. But this node is not set to is available. Okay, so something in the menu logic for the is available call that I wasn't 100% sure on. I broke something there. We will solve that next time, but I know that the problem, again, for if I don't touch this until next Sunday, I will watch the end of this stream and remind myself that the problem here is likely to do with the chunk of code here that is setting is available false. I'll need to do a check versus the old logic, because I think this is maybe not how it needs to be set up. It's maybe more complicated than how I simplified it down. Regardless, it's weird that some of the other ones are still working. Yeah. Yeah, so we have the ability to unlock items. We can... No, can't buy that one either. Can I hit control buy? I can't even control buy some of these. Yeah, so it's the button level is specifically saying, no, this is not available. Yeah, so even my debug won't let me purchase it. Okay. So yeah, I fundamentally broke something about the checking if the next node is available to be purchased, but I'm sure I can figure that out. And overall, getting all of the item unlocking and items dropping setup has been a good set of progress. Cool. Slower streams today. Definitely not as much work to show from today's streams, but definitely a much better understanding of how some of these systems are built. We're going to call it here. For now, though, this is going to be Tolhi signing out. Later, folks.